Chapter 54. The autumn wind was always refreshing and elegant, but at this moment, because of the tense atmosphere, it seemed that even the fragrance of the flowers had become strong. Xinyu covered her mouth and said with some surprise, "This fifth younger sister is a female. Why would anyone pick this?" "Correct." Chun Roqiu also said worriedly, "Fifth mother, do not force yourself. Even though eldest Bo is a general, you do not know these." Chun Roqiu's words were very clever. She said that Shen Xian was a general, but as a daughter, Shen Miao did not know how to shoot. It was fine if she was not proficient in martial arts, but because females did not like to wield swords and spears, this reason was also reasonable. But not proficient in martial arts and not proficient in literature, this was really bad. But everyone knew that Shen Miao did not know anything about the four arts, and now she had to say that she was not proficient in martial arts, which meant that Shen Miao had no good points, and even Shen Xian's household was belittled. "But the rules of this competition can't be changed," Chen Qing said with an anxious expression on her face. However, no matter how one listened to her tone, it was obvious that she was taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. Once you are chosen as an opponent, you will have to complete the competition regardless of which category you belong to. But everyone would pick outstanding people to compete with. Could it be that fifth younger sister still have a trick up her sleeves? Otherwise, why would Kai Lin pick you? Her words were somewhat ear-piercing. But Ren Wanyun did not stop her and only smiled. "Eldest sister, what nonsense are you talking about? How would fifth mother know how to wield swords and spears?" "Fifth mother, if you do not want to go on stage to compete, Second Shin will personally speak to the examiners. You are still young, and on account of eldest Bo's face, they will not make things difficult for you." Even though Ran Wanyun's words sounded as if she was helping her out of trouble, but upon careful thought, it was not the case. After all, no one had made an exception on the academy examination stage for many years. Now that Shen Miao had set a precedent, one could not predict how the commoners of the Ding capital would talk about it. Moreover, if Shen Xian's name was brought out, there would be people who would say that Shen Xian relied on his merits to exercise his privileges. After all, one's status brought about benefits, but there were also many disadvantages. And she would never allow anyone to say the word no to Shen Xian. "Many thanks, Second Shen. No need." She stood up from the female side of the banquet and slowly walked towards the stage. The field gradually quietened down. Only the girl's voice could be heard clearly, and it caused quite a stir in the field. "I accept this battle." Kai Lin's gaze flickered. He did this just to vent Shan Yu's anger. In the martial arts category, it was the first time a man challenged a woman to a competition. But he was used to being a scoundrel, and it was nothing more than being lectured by his own parents when he returned. But thinking of being able to vent Shan Yu's anger, Kai Lin was happy from the bottom of his heart. He thought that if Shen Miao did not dare to accept this challenge, he would ruthlessly ridicule Shen Miao. Unexpectedly, Shen Miao actually accepted the challenge. Not only that, but she also welcomed it calmly. Kai Lin had a strange feeling as he watched the purple-robed figure slowly walk onto the stage. It was as if she was not afraid at all. But how was this possible? Whether Shen Miao knew archery or not, he was clearer than anyone else. Those who had never practiced martial arts naturally knew nothing about it. Shen Miao might not even know how to hold the bow. Facing something that she was not good at and had never tried before, no one would not panic. She was actually able to act to such an extent? Kai Lin was deep in thought when he suddenly felt a gaze looking at him. He turned his head and met with Shan Yu's gaze from the female side of the banquet. When Shen Yu saw him looking over, she became shy and lowered her head. Kai Lin's heart swayed from the gaze. Every young man had a dream of being a hero saving a beauty. Now in Kai Lin's eyes, he was the hero that stood up for the beauty, and as for Shen Miao, she was the vicious and ugly villain. Chapter 55. No matter if she accepted the challenge or not, he would definitely make Shen Miao lose her face and put her in a sorry state under everyone's eyes. He wanted her to not dare to run rampant in front of Shen Yu. Generally speaking, the challenge segment was set by the challenger, and one would challenge in whatever way one wanted, and the one who was challenged could only accept the challenge. Because no one knew what would happen next, this round of the year was always the most attractive. Shen Miao walked up to the stage. The academy examiner, who was the lead actor, was also in a difficult position. Xin Miao was after all a delicate young lady, and it was acceptable for a female to challenge a male in the literary category, but it had to be a military category. One fear that Kai Lin deliberately wanted her to make a fool of herself. Today's show is very good. Prince Zhou clapped his hands and seemed to be very interested. One fear that the reputation of the first household of the Shen family will fall by 1,000 feet. Prince Jing shook his head and sighed. General Shen gained a good reputation from the battlefield, but this daughter is not living up to expectations. He thought in his heart that not only was she not living up to expectations, she was really stupid. Today it was clear that it was wrong for her to accept the challenge or not. Now with such an attitude, it would be even more laughable later on. Kai Lin proudly curled his lips. This year I thought of an interesting rule. It is too boring to honestly compete in archery every year. This year's archery challenge, I will shoot against you. You will place the fruit on your head, and I will shoot you with an arrow. Afterwards, I will place the fruit on your head, and you will shoot me with an arrow. How about it? When those words were said, the entire audience was in an uproar. That academy examiner was also shocked. This was going to kill someone. Xin Miao was after all Shen Xian's daughter, and if something really happened to her, who would be able to bear the responsibility when Shen Xian came back at the end of the year? He quickly said, "Student Kai." Kai Lin waved his hand. "Teacher, Guangwen Tang did not specially set a precedent for a certain person. The previous rules were like this, and whatever the challenger said would be the rules." Why? A dignified great general's daughter is also such a cowardly person? Xin Yu lowered her head and covered her curled-up lips. Feng Aning frowned, but did not know what to do at the moment. Well said. The voice was somewhat hoarse, but it came from Prince Yu, who had his eyes closed. A strange smile appeared on his sinister face. Naturally, there is no such thing as changing the rules for a certain person. Could it be that on the battlefield, because the enemy was strong, General Shen temporarily escaped? Then it's understandable. After saying that, he seemed to find it funny and laughed out loud. Xin Miao's gaze suddenly sharpened. These people kept on mocking Shen Xian. Did they really think that she was the weakness of the first household of the Shen family? She looked at Kai Lin's gaze, which seemed to be enjoying a good show, and then glanced at the malicious mockery of the people at the banquet. The anger that had been accumulating for a long time finally burst out. Shen Miao, who had been reborn, could endure, but the head of the inner palace, Empress Shen, had a vengeful nature. She said coldly, "My father is fighting a bloody battle to protect the country. That's why we have today's splendid chrysanthemum banquet. That's why there are hundreds of flowers blooming in the academy examination." A trace of mockery flashed in her eyes. Winning today's competition doesn't mean anything. You can talk about lust after you've truly gone on the battlefield and killed people. As for the rules you set, why wouldn't I dare? Everyone was taken aback. Why wouldn't I? Your archery skills are exquisite, so naturally you would hit the fruit, but my archery skills are not good, and if I were to miss, the one who should be worried about my life is you. She smiled gently, and her voice seemed to come from far away, but it was like a clap of thunder exploding in everyone's ears. In this case, sign the life and death agreement. If one is injured or dies, one will bear the consequences. Do you dare? Kai Lin. Chapter 56. The huge Yin Beitang was silent at this moment. The young female's back was straight. Her figure was petite, but it seemed to contain infinite power. Every move she made had the persistence to trample everything under her feet. Kai Lin was speechless for a moment. What Xin Miao said was right. To shoot arrows at each other like this, the one who was in the most danger should be him. It was because Shen Miao did not have any archery skills, and if the arrow was slightly off the mark, perhaps the arrow would pierce into his head. But how would Kai Lin think so much? His thinking was simple. As long as he shot the arrow first, with Shen Miao's temper, she would be so scared that her legs would go soft and she would beg for mercy. He would then play around with Shen Miao, and as a result, Shen Miao's face would be lost, and naturally he could help Xin Yu vent her anger. As for what would happen after that, Kai Lin did not even think about it. In his heart, Xin Miao would naturally be so scared after he shot the arrow, so how would she have the strength to shoot at him? Moreover, a female who had not even pulled a bow before, Perhaps she would not even be able to pull a big bow, so it would be a joke. Kai Lin thought like this, but he missed out on Shun Miao's reaction. She just quietly looked at the other. That kind of calmness that was beyond her age made Kai Lin suddenly angry out of shame. Shin Miao's gaze was like watching a child being played, pitiful and ridiculous. It was the most impulsive age, so Kai Lin did not say anything further. What do I not dare to do? Life and death contract is life and death contract. AI. Kai Darren, who was at the male side of the banquet, sighed anxiously. He could not wait to rush forward and beat up this unfilial son of his. Previously he thought that Kai Lin was just naughty and did not expect that he would pick Shin Miao. Kai Darren was not worried about his son's safety for the life and death contract, but he was afraid that Kai Lin would really make Shin Miao unable to step down from the stage or shoot and injure Shin Miao. Not everyone could withstand Shin Xian, this kind of uncouth old man. Shin Yu anxiously said, "How can fifth younger sister sign a life and death contract? It is only in academy examinations. How can it be to such a stage? This cannot be done." "Yes. How can fifth lady be so insensible?" Rin Wanyun frowned. "How can one say such words in a moment of impulsiveness? What if something goes wrong?" She did not even mention that it was Kai Lin who forced Shan Miao to make this choice, and only attributed everything to Shun Miao's actions in a fit of anger. Chun Roadshow shook her head and sighed softly. In the end, the desire to win is a little strong. They were concerned about Shin Miao and anxious for Shin Miao. Naturally, there was no lack of interest from the male side of the banquet. Prince Yu of the first rank stared at the purple-clad young female on the stage, and his turbid eyes exuded interest. It was as if a beast had seen its prey, but that gaze was nauseating. This young lady of the Shen family is really bold but not astute. Zhou Wang pointed out, she actually signed the life and death agreement. Doesn't she know that if something goes wrong, Shen Xian can't say anything about it? Most likely, it is to protect the reputation of the Shen family. Fu Xiaoyi looked at Shin Miao on stage and said, "After all, no one is willing to hear bad words about their own family." Unfortunately, even this would not change the fact. Prince Jing shook his head. Simply too impulsive. No wonder he said she was ignorant and stupid. Pei Lang picked up the tea on the table and took a sip. He also felt that Shin Miao's actions were too impulsive, even though he knew that Prince Yu's words were a little too much. But if Shin Miao was really willing to think for the Shin family, then she should think of a way to retreat. Even though she might be talked about by others, it was better than making a fool of herself in front of everyone. "Father, she will definitely win." Su Ming Lang clenched his small fists to express his position to his father. Master Su glanced at his youngest son. He did not know why, but he felt that Su Ming Lang was particularly concerned about Shin Miao. Master Su thought that it was most likely that she had coincidentally entered Su Ming Lang's eyes. Ever since the last time Su Ming Lang reminded the Su family to retreat, Master Su was much more amiable towards his youngest son. Now that he did not want to dampen his youngest son's interest, he vaguely followed his words. "Correct. She will definitely win." Chapter 57. Su Mingfeng did not know about Su Ming Lang's and Master Su's attitude. If he knew, he would definitely scoff because at this moment he was sitting in the pavilion and looking at the academy examination stage. He could not help but say, "The young lady of the Shen family is really courageous to even set up a life and death agreement." Could it be that she thought that it was a military competition when General Shun talked to her about matters in the military camp? This is too simple-minded. Su Mingfeng had never concealed his words to his good friend. But today he did not hear his most picky good friend chiming in and could not help but look back at the other party. The young man in purple held the begonia in his hand and tilted his head to the side, deep in thought. The sun was just right, and the breeze caused the tassel on his dagger to sway slightly. His eyes were handsome and heroic, and the way he was deep in thought made people feel that he was a peerless gentleman. "Third Xie, what are you thinking about?" Su Mingfeng could not help but ask. Xie Jingxing kept the begonia in his bosom and suddenly stood up with a smile. "Interesting. How about we make a bet?" "What bet?" "Just bet." Xie Jingxing pointed to the stage and had an indescribable romantic smile. "Who will win?" "Naturally it is Kai Lin." Su Mingfeng frowned. "Could it be that you think there are other candidates?" "I bet that Shin Miao will win," he said. Preparations had already started on the stage. Today's martial category archery was enough to raise the attention of everyone present. How was this an academy examination challenge? It was clearly a gamble of life. Guang Wentang really let someone write a life and death agreement, and the blood-colored words were exceptionally eye-catching on the snow-white cloth. Xin Miao picked up the brush and wrote her name. She wrote it very naturally, as if she did not put this heavy thing in her eyes. That was natural. She had written her name countless of times. When she wrote the surrender letter to the Xiongnu for Fuxiu Yi, when she volunteered to be the hostage of the Qin country, when Wan Yu was married, when the crown prince was deposed. Xin Miao, these two words represented blood and tears. No one could understand the suffering within. In contrast, Kailin was not that relaxed. Even though one's heart of victory was at its strongest when one was young, it was after all the first time one signed a life and death agreement. Kailin was just a child that was too well protected by the family and was not mature enough. Xin Miao's calmness made his heart even more afraid. The strokes of the pen were as heavy as 1,000 caddies, and it was difficult for him to write. His name was crooked and formed a sharp contrast with Shan Miao's name. After he finished writing, he could not help but ask, "Xin Miao, are you not afraid that I will miss in the first round? If I was afraid that you would hit me in the second round, I could have hurt you in the first round." Just as Shen Miao was about to take the fruits, she turned around and stared at Kailin. "Gentleman Kai thinks so? But I don't agree," she said. "Everyone knows that young Master Kai's archery is outstanding. If he missed, it couldn't have been a mistake. He must have done it on purpose. Young Master Kai wanted to kill me on purpose, but I didn't. Everyone knows that I don't know anything about this, so it's reasonable that I missed." Kailin was stunned, and then he was dumbstruck. A deep sense of powerlessness surged into his heart. Yes, it was intentional for him to miss, but it was natural for Shen Miao to miss. He couldn't even miss, because, if that happened, everyone would be able to tell that he did it on purpose. He put Xin Miao in a dilemma, and Xin Miao immediately returned the favor. No matter what, it would be wrong. In order for Gentleman Kai to avoid being shot by me in the second round, naturally you can kill me in one go in the first round. The life and death agreement has been signed, so even if you kill me, it would only be the result of the competition. Other than the spit of the world, you would not have to bear any responsibility. I am right here. Do you dare to kill? Chapter 58. I am right here. Do you dare to kill? Kailin stared at the young female in front of him as if it was the first time they met, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He was used to doing whatever he wanted in Guangwentang and was pampered till he could do whatever he wanted. As for Xin Miao, he only wanted to teach her a lesson today. Who knew that not only was Xin Miao not afraid, she even went against him? To actually say such words at this moment, it seemed that he was the one at a disadvantage. Did Kailin dare? Not to mention if he had the guts, even if he dared, could he do it? The young master of the Kai family could do things on a spur of the moment, but what about the Kai family? If Shen Miao was really killed by him today, not to mention a life for a life, it was possible for Shan Xian to behead the entire Kai family and personally beg for forgiveness. Moreover, he did not dare. He only knew how to talk glibly and had never been on the battlefield before, not even being stained with blood. Even though his archery skills were very good, but he only shot at fruits or animals and not people. But how could he shrink back now? Xin Miao was a female and was not afraid. So if he, a male, were to shrink back, one feared that he would not have the face to leave the residence tomorrow. Thinking of this, Kailin arrogantly said, "Whatever you say, we'll see what you've got on the shooting range. You speak happily now, but who knows if you would be scared witless later." His words were extremely rude, and one did not know if he was trying to cover up his panic. The calmer Xin Miao was, the more uneasy he was. After all, he wanted to see the other party's flustered look as if only that could calm his guilty conscience. Thus he only hoped that his words would make Xin Miao feel embarrassed. If it was a normal female, when a male spoke to her in such a ruthless manner, she would naturally feel ashamed and act coy or even cry. But when Shen Miao heard it, she only glanced at him faintly and her heart was as still as water, making Kailin feel that everything was just him messing around. He was somewhat stunned and suspected that he had made a mistake today. Why would he feel guilty when facing Shen Miao, this idiot? Shen Miao had already gone to the examiner to take the fruits. That fruit was about the size of an adult male's fist, and it was square at the bottom and round at the top. Shen Miao stood at the most eastern side of the stage and placed the fruit on top of her head. The arena gradually became noisy. At this moment, she must be pretending to be calm, but in reality, she is scared out of her wits. Yi Pei Lan smiled and said, I really can't wait to see her scared to tears. Since the Ming Qi Academy examinations, there has never been a female who was challenged by a male in terms of martial arts. Jiang Shaoxian raised her little finger and tilted her head. This Shen Miao can be considered as the first time. It's just that it's scary to be humiliated in front of so many people. Io, why is Fifth Lady still standing there? What if it misses the young master of the Kai family? Ren Wanyun said. Her heart was in a difficult position. If anything happened to Shen Miao, no matter how well Shen Xian treated the Shen family, he would not spare her. What is Second Saw worried about? Chen Roqiu said lightly, after all, it is just children playing around. The young master of the Kai family wasn't a child who didn't know anything. As long as Wunyang admits defeat and begs for mercy, I naturally won't make things difficult for her. I just hope that Wunyang won't fight on impulse. She described this kind of life and death matter as children playing around. After all, Ren Wanyun was the one in charge of the family, and if anything happened, Ren Wanyun would be the one to bear the responsibility. But her words had hit the bottom of Ren Wanyun's heart. It was all because Shen Miao wanted to fight on impulse. If Shen Miao properly begged for mercy and said some soft words to Kai Lin, naturally she would not end up in this situation. Don't worry, Chen Roqiu said. I think that gentlemen of the Kai family only wanted to scare Fifth Lady. In this kind of academy examinations, everyone is fighting for poise, so it is impossible to stop now. Mother need not worry. Shen Qing also said to Ren Wanyun, Kai Lin's marksmanship is very good. No matter what, he would not miss. Shen Qing was still thinking that Shen Miao was blocking her dream of becoming a prince's consort, and now she could not wait for Shen Miao to lose all her face. One heard that some people would pee and poop when they were so shocked. One did not know what would happen to Shen Miao. If Kai Lin really missed, it would not be bad to ruin her face. Shen Qing thought. Shen Yu did not think as far as Shen Qing. She only wanted to see Shen Miao kneeling and begging for mercy, as if that would be able to regain her self-esteem. She glanced at Kai Lin from afar, but Kai Lin did not look at her. Kai Lin held the longbow in his hands as he faced Shen Miao, who was 3 zhang away with cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Shen Miao stood there quietly as the wind blew up the corner of her wide cloak. As her purple clothes fluttered, her brows and eyes were similar but that kind of dignified bearing, as if she had experienced a great storm and calmness, gilded her entire person with a layer of dazzling brilliance. Kai Lin slowly pulled the bow. He thought, as long as Shen Miao begged for mercy, as long as she shed a tear and said a few words, he would be able to take the opportunity to humiliate her, and there would be no need to be in such a dilemma. Unfortunately, his wish ultimately fell through. Shen Miao's expression was calm, as if she did not put him in her eyes. Shen Yu frowned. Why did the scene of Shen Miao crying and begging for mercy not appear? Why did Shen Miao look calmer than Kai Lin? There were already quite a number of people who discovered this point, and their impression of the original idiot was quietly changing. Not every young lady could stand in front of a person with a bow and arrow, and if one were to say that she inherited Shen Xian's composure in front of the enemy, it could only be said that a tiger father would not have a dog daughter. Kai Lin's hands started to tremble. Usually it was an easy matter for him to shoot the fruit from 3 zhang away, but today it was exceptionally difficult. That distance seemed to be very far. And Shen Miao's words lingered in his ears. I am here. Do you dare to kill? Did he dare? Did he dare? Did he dare? With a xiao sound, the arrow fiercely streaked across. But it only swayed in midair before falling down. It did not even reach the corner of Shen Miao's clothes, as if there was not enough strength, much less shoot the fruit. The audience burst into laughter. There was even a classmate who teased, Kai Lin, could it be that you have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex? Normally one could shoot from 10 zhang, but today, one cannot even shoot from 3 zhang? He wiped the sweat on his forehead and immediately started to shoot. The second arrow was shot at Shun Miao's feet. The third arrow brushed past Shun Miao's hair and knocked down the fruit on Shin Miao's head. Shin Miao's hair was scattered, and a head of black hair flowed down to her shoulders. However, even when the arrow narrowly brushed past her cheeks, her expression did not change at all. Black hair, purple clothes, the young female's snow-white skin and beautiful appearance stood straight in the wind. Kai Lin's hands softened, and the bow and arrows fell to the ground. The audience was silent. Even a fool could see that the person who was afraid was not Shin Miao but Kai Lin. "I am here. Do you dare to kill me?" "Do not dare." "I dare." She smiled faintly, and a tinge of cruelty appeared in her eyes that were like those of a cub's. Coupled with her face that was still somewhat innocent, there was a strange sort of beauty to it. "Now, it is my turn." Chapter 59. It is my turn. The three words were said lightly by Shen Miao, but there was an inexplicable chill in them. It was as if the voice came from the 9 heavens and smashed in front of Kai Lin. The cold sweat on Kai Lin's forehead slid down his face as he stared blankly at Shen Miao in front of him. Shen Miao took a few steps forward and bent down to pick up the longbow on the ground. Everyone present were watching her every move, and their eyes were reluctant to turn away. This was really an unexpected scene. One thought that one would see Shin Miao fainting from fright or lose her composure, but she was completely fine. It was Kai Lin who was drenched in cold sweat, and none of the 3 arrows were heavy. After a short silence, the audience below the stage started to discuss. Indeed, a tiger father does not beget a dog daughter. This young lady of the Shun family has such guts. The person who spoke had a good relationship with Shin Xian and initially had some doubts when he heard that Shen Miao was an idiot, but after seeing it today, he thought that those words were just rumors. With this kind of courage and boldness, how would one be an idiot? It was obvious that there was someone who deliberately did it to smear the young lady's reputation. Indeed, not bad. You see, just now she did not even blink, and if the arrow was slightly off, it would have scratched her cheek. This young lady really has the air of a great general. Even if it was us, we would most likely jump in shock. Why don't you see which family she comes from? Can General Shin's young lady be bad? It seems that those words were just rumors and cannot be trusted. AI, no wonder one would deliberately smear her name. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. To be so outstanding at such a young age, it is no wonder that others would be jealous. Most of the people in the official circles had a good attitude towards Shin Xian. After all, there were many interlinked interests. Moreover, they were always working in the court and were not as meticulous as the women in the inner courtyard. Thus, they looked at things differently. In the past, it was Shen Miao who was young, but now that she was older, naturally she would display her outstanding qualities. Prince Xiao and Prince Jing looked at one another before Prince Jing shook his head and sighed. "It seems that both of us are wrong. She is really a bold person." Number 9 is regretting it now? Prince Zhou smiled as he looked at Fu Xiaoyi. How could one reject such an extraordinary female? One would not have such a change in one night. It is either that this 5th Shin young lady met an expert, or she was deliberately pretending to be a fool. No matter which one it is, number 9, you are at a disadvantage. Prince Jing said. Fu Xiaoyi smiled and said, "A fair and graceful lady. Unfortunately, you are not someone I like." Regret? Fu Xiaoyi did not feel that it was just that Shun Miao's calm look was somewhat dazzling in his eyes. He also didn't believe that a person could change into a completely different person overnight. Could it be that he had been pretending to be a fool all along? But why did he pretend to be a fool? Could it be that he did it on purpose to make him dislike him? Pei Lang put down the teacup that he was holding. He did not know why, but just now he was worried for Shin Miao. Unexpectedly, she managed to stabilize herself. Not only did she stabilize herself, but she also scared Kai Lin so much that he couldn't even pull a normal arrow properly. Shin Miao was so powerful. Indeed, a wonderful person. Prince Yu smiled satisfactorily and stared at Shen Miao's figure. Do not know. What does it taste like? Pei Lang frowned. Prince Yu's words most likely meant that he was thinking of something dirty and shameful. Unfortunately, his words carried little weight, and he could not do anything. You have lost. In the pavilion, Xie Jingxing was leaning against the window as he said in a calm and composed manner. It was actually this kind of result. Su Mingfeng's eyes almost popped out. He looked at Xie Jingxing and then looked at the distant stage before asking, "Did you already know about it?" One must be willing to bet and be willing to lose. Xie Jingxing stood up and patted the dust off his body. Chapter 60. All right, I admit defeat. What is the punishment? Su Mingfeng answered straightforwardly. Your punishment is to celebrate with me after this match. How about the new Hong that has been buried for 20 years? You really have a black heart. Su Mingfeng scolded and immediately realized something and asked doubtfully, but why celebrate? Is there anything to be happy about? Not now, but there will be soon. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. It's something worth being happy about. On the stage, Shen Miao handed the fruit to Kai Lin. Kai Lin's hands trembled as he received the fruits and asked, Shen Miao, have you learned archery before? Never. Shen Miao smiled as she looked at him. Today is my first time touching a bow, but since I am able to shoot 3 arrows, even if I do not understand the first one, there is still the next one. I will eventually learn it. Kai Lin shuddered and looked at Shen Miao incredulously. Are you talking nonsense? Just now Shen Miao's expression was calm and unhurried, as if she often did this kind of thing with others. He was lucky enough to think that Shen Miao was an expert. After all, Shen Xian was the formidable great general, and it was possible for him to personally teach his daughter archery. But now Shen Miao actually said that today was the first time she touched the bow. How dare she? He said, you don't know anything? How can you shoot from afar? It's obvious that I can't hit this fruit. Am I not going to die for nothing? Young Master Kai is too ridiculous, Shen Miao said calmly. Her voice was neither loud nor soft. When she spoke, it was just loud enough for everyone to hear. Everyone looked at the purple-clothed girl. She lowered her eyebrows and narrowed her eyes, but her aura was overbearing. Just now, when young Master Kai challenged me to fight, he never asked me if I knew how to shoot. When you were shooting at me just now, you didn't ask me if I would die. Why is it that when it's my turn to shoot, you're asking me if I can do it? These words made Kai Lin speechless. Indeed, he only wanted to vent Shun Yu's anger and deliberately chose the archery that Shen Miao did not know. But now, he had shot himself in the foot. Young Lady Shun, my son is naughty and mischievous. This official apologizes to you on his behalf. Please do not take it to heart. It's just that you really don't know how to use archery right now, so it's hard to avoid accidents. It's not good for you to pursue the matter. Lord Kai finally couldn't bear it any longer and suddenly opened his mouth under the gaze of his wife. As soon as the words left his mouth, his face turned red. However, there was nothing he could do. Although it was embarrassing, it was better than losing his son's life. He even used this official to threaten Shan Miao. Even though it was not good to bully a young lady like this, Kai Darren was somewhat resentful that Shen Miao did not know how to be flexible and his tone involuntarily had some majesty. But how would Shen Miao be intimidated by an official? She had dealt with the Xiongnu, the imperial family of the Qin country, and the emperor of Ming Qi. As for the officials, she really did not put them in her eyes. Thus everyone could only watch as Shen Miao's chin was slightly raised. Kai Darren was originally standing below the stage, so looking from afar, he looked like an official crawling at Shan Miao's feet. Shen Miao's words made everyone dumbfounded. She said, Kai Darren, just now I bet my life, and now it is Kai Lin's turn to bet his life. The life and death agreement has already been set, and it is clearly written in black and white. Even if I were to shoot him to death today, it would be fair and square, and there would not be a trace of relationship. If one is willing to bet, one must be willing to lose. Not waiting for Kai Darren to speak, she continued, one cannot stand without trust. This rule was personally suggested by Kai Lin, and now to go back on it, could it be that Kai Darren's style is the same in the official circles? Once the situation is not right, one would immediately change the rules? Shen Miao softly said, the third arrow. As soon as he loosened his grip, an arrow shot out from the bow. A sharp killing intent rushed towards Kai Lin's forehead, scaring him so much that he knelt down with a plop and let out a blood-curdling scream. Help! Linner! Kai Foran and Kai Darren exclaimed at the same time. The entire audience stood up and stretched their necks to look at the situation on the stage. Kai Lin collapsed on the ground, and the round fruit on the ground had been pierced through by the black arrow, completely pierced through. Chapter 61. One cannot stand without trust. This rule was personally proposed by Kylin, and now to go back on it. Could it be that Kai Darren also has such a style in the officialdom? Once the situation is not right, he would immediately change the rules? Previously Kylin said, Guangwen Tang did not specially set a precedent for someone. Whatever rules the challenger says, then the rules will be followed. Why? A dignified great general's daughter is also such a cowardly person? His words were still ringing in one's ears, and now Shen Miao returned it back to Kai Darren's face, making Kai Lin speechless. The rules are set by you all, and now you all are not doing it. With a red mouth and white teeth, is it possible to do anything? Are all the Darren of Ming Qi like this? Her words were sharp and ruthlessly exaggerated the matter. Kai Darren's cold sweat suddenly dripped down. There were so many colleagues in the officialdom, and today there were his relatives, and naturally there were also his enemies. When Shen Miao's words fell into the ears of those who had the intention, who knew what kind of fuss would be made out of it. Moreover, there were people from the imperial family here, and if it was not good, it would attract the suspicion of the imperial family. Not to mention Kai Lin. Even the entire Kai family would suffer a calamity. Young Lady Shun said correctly. The one who spoke was Prince Yu of the first rank. He smiled strangely at Shen Miao and said, Kai Darren, Gentleman Kai set the rules so naturally it must be completed by himself. When would Prince Yu of the first rank be kind enough to help others out of trouble? When those words were spoken, everyone's eyes were cast towards Shen Miao. There were all kinds of meanings, some understanding and some contempt. Prince Zhou and Prince Jing looked at each other before Prince Jing sighed. Even Royal Shu has spoken. Perhaps we will have another young Royal Saw? When Prince Zhou finished, he also felt that it was funny and shook his head without speaking. Prince Yu of the first rank had already spoken, so no matter how dissatisfied Kai Darren was, he would not dare to refute at this moment. Even though he was angry in his heart, he could only brace himself and say, It is this official's lack of consideration. He stared at Kai Lin with sorrow and anger at Kai Lin before turning and leaving. Kai Lin watched helplessly as his father left, and his heart was also anxious. He originally thought that Shen Miao was only good at talking, but when he met with Shen Miao's clear eyes, his heart could not help but feel a chill. She was like a silent beast. She clearly looked like a little girl who had not yet grown up, but why did she feel so scary? He lowered his voice and said, If you hurt me, the Kai clan will definitely not forgive you. This could be considered a threat. Kai Lin was now riding a tiger, and it was hard to get off. With Shen Miao's archery skills, if he were to miss by even a little, his little life would not be guaranteed. When he hunted with his good friend, he had also seen arrows miss, shooting into the eyes or buttocks of the prey, but it was not a one-shot kill. The struggle of the prey was really tragic. Could it be that he was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered? He threatened like this, hoping that Shen Miao would have a sense of propriety and gently pull the bow, and that would be it. He whispered again, If you are sensible this time, in the future, I will not find trouble with you in Guangwen Tang. Shen Miao gently raised her eyebrows and looked up at him. Kai Lin looked nervous, as if he was afraid that she would not agree. Unfortunately, she had seen many such people in her previous life. He only bullied the weak and feared the strong. Now he was afraid, so he relented. Once today's matter was over, Kai Lin would definitely be the same as before, and would even wait for a chance to retaliate after losing face. Just like a badger that had just left its nest in the jungle and thought that it had dominated the jungle. But when it met a ferocious wolf, its face would change. But if there was a chance in the future, this badger would still think of ways to give it a try. Unfortunately, she was never a wolf. She was a tiger. How to make this badger never dare to provoke her again? That was, bite off his neck in one bite, so that he would never dare to provoke her again. She smiled gently. Previously I asked you, do you dare to kill me if I am here? Your archery skills had already answered this question for you. Now that this question is in front of me, do you want to hear my answer? Her little face was as smooth as jade and still had a bit of tenderness, like a sprout growing in spring. But her words were so savage that it made one's heart palpitate. I dare. Finishing this sentence, She turned around and walked to the shooting platform. Kai Lin stood at the same spot in a daze and only recovered to his senses when the examiner called his name. Only then did he discover that everyone was looking at him, and their eyes were filled with a look of watching a good show. His gaze landed on the pink-clad young lady at the female side of the banquet. Xinyu was talking to the person beside her and did not even look at the platform. He suddenly felt somewhat lost and felt that his actions at this moment made others even more disgusted. He was the one who provoked it, so how could he shrink back now? If he lost to a female, one feared that the Kai family would become a laughing stock in the capital, not to mention that Xunyu was watching from below the platform. If he were to make a fool of himself, how could he face Xinyu in the future? Facing Xunyu? Just a little female, and she said it's so frightening. Could it be that she really dared to kill? Even if there was a life and death agreement, killing a person was not something that could be easily explained. Thinking about this point, Kai Lin encouraged himself in his heart and pretended to be calm as he walked to the white line 3 zhang away and placed the fruit on top of his head. Everyone looked at him, and then looked at Shen Miao and felt that there was some strange feeling. In the distance, Xie Jingxing opened his mouth. Make a guess. Did you hit or not? Of course not hit. Su Mingfeng stared at him. Not to say if she has the guts to injure Kai Lin. Even if she dared, does she have the ability? There are very few unmarried females who practice martial arts, and moreover Shen Miao's character, you should know from the Ding capital that she does not know anything. Xie Jingxing smiled lowly. Not necessarily. Could it be that you want to bet with me again? Why the need for such a superfluous move? I have already seen the ending. Su Mingfeng was used to his good friend's mysteriousness, so he said, What ending? Xie Jingxing lazily said, You lose. Xinyu looked at Shen Miao on the stage, and her heart tightened. She softly asked Chenroqiu, Mother, will she injure Gentleman Kai? Naturally not. Chenroqiu saw that her daughter was somewhat bewitched by Shen Miao today and could not help but sigh in her heart. She thought that she was still too young and could not maintain her composure. She said, How could it be that easy to hit the target? I heard from your first uncle that drawing a bow also requires strength. Your 5th younger sister has never drawn a bow or shot an arrow in the mansion. I'm afraid that just drawing the bow requires a lot of strength. You should not let your imagination run wild. Your 5th younger sister is only playing around. Was Shen Miao really playing around? Naturally not. She lifted her hand, knocked the arrow, and pulled the bow. Her actions were so smooth that it was as if she had practiced it thousands of times. There was no delicately holding hands, nor was there any hesitation as if she did not know what to do. The actions were so neat that one would not doubt that she was a skilled archer. In the next moment, the arrow that left the bow shot towards Kai Lin with a murderous intent. The entire audience quietened down, and in the extreme silence, the arrow that fell to the ground made a crisp sound, and the arrowhead still had a little red. Chapter 62. On and off the stage, everyone froze into a still picture. The one who broke this picture was Kai Lin. He reached out and touched his left cheek where the arrow had just grazed past, and there was a little red blood stain. Everyone was stunned. Shen Miao actually dared to shoot. She did not stop the arrow midway, and also did not deliberately shoot to the side. She was neither near nor far from the Chaoguazi, but it just brushed past Kai Lin's cheek. Kai Lin shouted loudly, Shen Miao, what are you doing? Before he finished speaking, the second arrow had already swept over with a strong gust of wind. It brushed past his right cheek, and Kai Lin immediately felt a burning pain on his right cheek. He reached out to touch it, and to his surprise, he discovered that it was a smear of blood. He was almost going crazy. Staring at Shen Miao in disbelief, Kai Darren also wanted to stop, but Prince Yu of the first rank was still sitting in front, and he dared not move. Run Wanyun suddenly stood up. Is Fifth Lady crazy? How dare she really injure the young master of the Kai family? Your residence's 5th young lady is really powerful. Foreign pretended to be surprised. How would an ordinary female have such courage? To injure the young master of the Kai family. In the future, would not both masters have a few more colleagues in court who do not have good relations with each other? These words were said in Rianwan Yun's and Chenroqiu's hearts. Previously, they only thought that Shen Miao would make a fool of herself but who knew that not only did Shin Miao not make a fool of herself, she even injured Kai Lin. If the Kai family were to denounce the Shen residents because of this, the Kai family would walk the path of civil officials and offend the Kai family. How would Shen Gui and Shen Wan, the two brothers, end up well? Thinking of this, Run Wan Yun was extremely anxious and could not wait to bring Shan Miao to the Kai family to apologize. Just as she was about to shout out to stop Shin Miao's actions, Chen Rochio held her hands down. "Younger sister, what are you doing?" Run Wan Yun said unhappily. "Are you going to watch Fifth Lady get into trouble?" Later, when Master asks, who would be able to shoulder this responsibility? Chen Rochio simply wanted to worship this second sister-in-law. She was born more noble than Ran Wan Yun and boasted that she was from a scholarly family. She was most disdainful of such worldly actions and naturally looked down on Ran Wan Yun's idea of not being able to enter the elegant hall. She said, "Second Saw's thinking is not wrong, but just now one also heard that even Prince Yu of the first rank also spoke. Otherwise, why do you think Master Kai did not speak up till now and only watch his own son get injured? Even if second sister-in-law spoke, could she make the decision here? It's better to wait and see. If he asks, just treat it as a child's play. Don't tell me we're just going to watch." Rin Wan Yu knew that what Chen Rochio said was reasonable, but she could not help but worry. What if Fifth Lady does not know the severity of her actions and cause a big disaster? The life and death contract is one thing, but the rumors in the Ding capital is another. What are you afraid of? Didn't you see Fifth Lady's attack just now? Chen Rochio smiled. She obviously knows how to draw the bow and is just deliberately giving the Kai family's brat face. This is a deliberate revenge. But she should also know how to act properly, otherwise it would not be as simple as a scratch on the cheek. Chen Rochio sighed. After all, one has offended others. Since that is the case, then let nature take its course. If Fifth Lady were to really be ruthless in her actions, one fear that in the future she would have to bear the reputation of being cruel and vicious. Every single word of their sister-in-law's words fell into the ears of the two sisters, Xinqing and Shunyu. They were still young and did not understand the matters of the officialdom, thus they only heard the last sentence. Xinyu looked at Shun Miao, who was wearing a long gown with wide sleeves. Today she was calm and composed and was in the limelight, which was really annoying. She thought that it would be good if Shun Miao really shot Kailin to death. Then Shun Miao would be carrying a human life. Such a vicious person. Who would dare to marry in the future, and who would dare to get close to her? Now this kind of scratch was only powerful and not vicious. The more she thought about it, the more sparkling things flashed in Shun Yu's eyes. The safety of Kai Lin, who wholeheartedly wanted to make things difficult for Shun Miao, had long been thrown to the back of her mind, and even hoped that Kai Lin would use his own life to fulfill Shen Miao's notoriety. Even though the people below the stage were discussing, they did not dare to make a sound because of Prince Yu's face. Even the Kai family's husband and wife were burning with anxiety and could only watch their son standing on the stage to become an arrow target. "Shen Miao, what exactly do you want?" Even 2 arrows had grazed his cheeks and his entire face was burning with pain. Other than anger towards Shen Miao, Kai Lin also had a trace of fear. He suddenly discovered that there was nothing that Shen Miao did not dare to do. She was clearly a lunatic and dared to do anything. Separated by some distance, Shen Miao's voice was a little vague and could not be transmitted to the people below the stage, but it could be transmitted to Kai Lin's ears. Her voice was light as if it came from the clouds, making one not dare to look up. She said, "To teach you a lesson." Shen Miao suddenly raised her voice. "There is still one last arrow." Everyone in the audience stared at that arrow. Kai Lin's legs were about to go soft, and he pinched himself hard so that he would not go soft. Because he saw that Shen Miao's arrow was aimed at his head. He was very afraid. It was a kind of fearless fear towards the Shen family. This kind of fear was so strong that it captured all of his attention at this moment. He wanted to escape from this academy examination stage, but Shen Miao's arrow was aimed at him, as if she could chase him to the ends of the earth. The young lady of the Shen family is just too strong. Even though the Darren at the male side of the banquet admired Shen Miao's calmness, they also felt sorry for her performance at the moment. One had to know that it was not a good thing for a female to be too strong. She was now biting Kai Lin and not letting go. It was nothing more than to retaliate against Kai Lin's provocation. But Kailin did not cause any harm to her, but Shen Miao had scratched Kailin's face. Even though males were not more delicate than males, and it was not a big deal to leave a scar, but to leave it on the face, at the end it would not look good. This is like General Shen's daughter. There were also some who applauded Shen Miao. If one only knew to be bullied and did not fight back, General Shen would be so angry that he would be in a complete mess if he knew about it. But you see now that the arrow is aimed at Kailin's head. This is the intention to take Kailin's life. This is too vicious. Kailin's legs kept trembling, and he looked at the purple-clad young female in the distance as if he was looking at an evil spirit. Her appearance was gentle and beautiful. Her eyes were clear and even had a bit of innocence. But there was no hesitation in the movements of her hands. Shen Miao softly said, "The third arrow." As soon as he loosened his grip, an arrow shot out from the bow. A sharp killing intent rushed towards Kailin's forehead, scaring him so much that he knelt down with a plop and let out a blood-curdling scream. "Help! Liner!" Kai Foran and Kai Darren exclaimed at the same time. The entire audience stood up and stretched their necks to look at the situation on the stage. Kai Lin collapsed on the ground, and the round fruit on the ground had been pierced through by the black arrow, completely pierced through. Chapter 63. In the silence, the appearance of the fruits was like a great irony, reflecting Kai Lin's scratched face, tears of fear and Shen Miao's indifferent posture. She kept her bow and bent over to pick up the fruits on the ground. She glanced at Kai Lin and suddenly smiled. "You have lost?" She had a tender look to begin with, and today, she appeared excessively calm from beginning to end, causing people to overlook her age. Now with a light smile, there was a bit of naivety. Everyone looked carefully and felt that the original dullness was not dullness. This young lady actually had bright eyes and a bit of grace and beauty. Kai Lin could not say a word. His face still had the bloodstains from the scratches that were not wiped clean, and his tears streamed down. The bloodstains were diluted. His entire face was red and disheveled. At this moment, he did not care about his face and only looked at Shen Miao with eyes full of fear. Shen Miao raised her eyebrows and seemed to finally know fear. It was good to be afraid. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey so that in the future these snakes, worms, rats, and ants would know their place. The servants quickly helped Kai Lin, who was so scared that his legs went soft, off the stage. The examiner who was in charge of the academy examinations walked to Shen Miao's side and saw the fruits that were pierced by the arrows. He asked in surprise, "Shen young lady had practiced archery before?" Not only the aim must be good, the strength in pulling the bow must not be lax. Shen Miao was a delicate little girl, but she was so skilled in pulling the arrow. Moreover, everyone could clearly see the last arrow. Kai Lin was so scared that he fell down and Shen Miao was able to shoot the fruit when Kai Lin could not move. This was something that was not surprising. Practiced? Shen Miao slightly tilted her head and fell into deep thoughts. That was the first year when she went to the Qin country as a hostage. No matter if it was the princes or princesses of the Qin country, they all loved to humiliate her. It was a very interesting thing to see the Empress being humiliated, but she could not get angry because at that time the Qin country was lending troops to Ming Qi. Those princesses and princes invented a new way of playing, and it was the rules that Kai Lin set in the academy examinations. Changing the person to hit the fruits. When she was the target, those Qin imperial family deliberately shot her hair messily, shot her clothes, and even, occasionally, accidentally shot her arms and neck. She could only grit her teeth and endure. At that time, every night, she would stay in her room and carefully set up a target. She practiced diligently, treating those targets as people who had hurt her. She practiced seriously and worked hard. Finally, she could hit the target every time. But in the daytime, when it was her turn to shoot an arrow, she would still deliberately miss it, or she would be too weak to draw the bow. No choice, one had to lower one's head under the eaves. She must return to Ming Qi alive to see Wan Yu and Fu Ming. This kind of strenuous life lasted for an entire year. Today, when Kai Lin brought it up again, it suddenly brought her back to those humiliating days. In this life, she had nothing that could be used against her. Naturally, she could kill and shoot whenever she wanted. Otherwise, she would have to live a restrained life. Whoever provoked her, she would ruthlessly return the favor. If the Kai family dared to talk about Shinexin, then they would shut their mouths. This was what she should do. She smiled and said, I've seen elder brother practicing diligently in the courtyard. I've seen it many times, so I've followed his example. I didn't expect to hit the mark today. This made the Kai couple below the stage so angry that they were in a complete mess. Their son was once a first-rank archer, but today not only did he not hit a single target, he even made a fool out of himself in front of everyone. Shin Miao said that she was just following the example of the first time. She pulled the bow and shot the fruit. What kind of muddled matter was this? Pa, pa, pa. A clear and crisp applause sounded. Everyone turned around and saw Prince Yu clapping his hands. Indeed not bad. Shin Miao glanced at him but did not make a sound. The examiner said in a clear voice, Is there anyone else who wants to challenge the first-rank archery? This round was naturally won by Shin Miao, and other people would naturally come up to challenge Shin Miao. If there was no one to challenge, Shun Miao would be a well-deserved first rank. Hearing those words, Shun Yu's face suddenly became ugly. In the first academy examinations, she was completely overshadowed by Shin Miao. She looked at Fu Xiaoyi, who was talking to Prince Jing and Prince Zhou from afar, and clenched her hands tightly before loosening them. In his heart, he cursed Kai Lin, who was a good-for-nothing. But in the next moment, she heard someone shouting, I want to challenge Shin Miao. At the male side of the banquet, a youth stood up. This person looked to be around 16 or 17 years of age and was considered not bad. Unfortunately, his pair of eyes revealed an unconcealable sophistication and shrewdness. Even if his tone was humble, there was a kind of pretentious feeling. With just one look, Shin Miao knew who this person was. She found it somewhat funny in her heart. This was the Shu son of the Marquis of Lin and Xie family, Xie Jingxing's Shu younger brother, second young master Xie Chongwu. This person did not have any other abilities, but was extremely slick. He was the most pretentious person in the officialdom and was proficient in bootlicking. Afterwards, the entire Xie family collapsed, and this pair of Shu sons and Madame Fong relied on the new emperor's pension for the Xie family to live comfortably. Xie Chongwu and his younger brother Xie Chong Chao even entered the court as officials. At that time, she did not like these two brothers at all because the two Shu sons of the Xie family were on Mei Furin's side and were on good terms with Fu Sheng, and often helped Fu Sheng to suppress Fu Ming. The reason why Shin Miao reminded Xie Jingxing to find an opportunity to eradicate his own Shu brothers was because she was still brooding over the matters of the past lifetime. These two people must not be left alive, as leaving them alive would be enmity. Now she had yet to take revenge for her enmity, but this person took the initiative to send himself to her doorstep. But for what? She looked at Master Kai's position. Master Kai's face was calm, and Xie Chong Chao seemed to be comforting him. That's right. Recently, the two Xie brothers were preparing to find a job under Kai Darren. Thus, they had been taking the initiative to befriend Kai Lin. Unfortunately, the one Kai Lin wanted to befriend was Xie Jingxing and did not care about the two brothers. But wasn't it a good opportunity now? One had to know that in the past lifetime, at the end of this year, which was when she successfully forced Fu Xiaoyi to marry, Xie Chongwu and Xie Chong Chao entered Kai Darren's hands. After that, 2 years later, the Kai family was involved in a corruption case and their assets were confiscated and exterminated. There were many things that had changed, but there were also many things that did not change. It seemed that after the changes, the ending had not changed. The two Xie brothers wanted to use this method to please the Kai family, but let her sweep their face. Just as Shun Miao was about to answer, she heard a voice coming from the side. That voice was lazy and had an indescribable ridicule. Usually you do not practice with older brother at home and now come to challenge a little girl? Xie Chongwu, the more you live, the more you are regressing. Xie Jingxing appeared on the stage, and he folded his arms across his chest as he looked at the two Shu brothers who were stunned below the stage. He smiled. How about I challenge the both of you? Let me discipline my younger brother and not learn from a coward to fight with a female and disgrace himself outside. He looked at Shin Miao again and said, You go down? Chapter 64. Shin Miao stared at him without moving. She had reminded Xie Jingxing, so she was naturally prepared for Xie Jingxing to go on stage, but she didn't expect it to be like this. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was as if Xie Jingxing was helping her out, But the truth was not like that. Xie Chongwu did not expect that Xie Jingxing would suddenly rush out. Today, he only wanted to please the Kai family. He thought that since Shan Miao had already offended the Kai family, as long as he humiliated Shin Miao and taught her a lesson on behalf of the Kai family would naturally have a good impression of him. Even though it seemed that Shin Miao's archery was not bad, but there was a huge disparity in strength between a female and a male. Moreover, the reason why Kai Lin failed was because he had underestimated the enemy. But Xie Chongwu was not a person who underestimated the enemy. If it was possible, he would even use some subtle tricks on the arrows. Anyway, Shin Miao was not a person who often practiced martial arts and would definitely not be able to see it. He had made such a good plan, but he never thought that his elder brother would kill him halfway. Not only were the two Xie brothers stunned, but the rest of the audience was also stunned. If the Marquis of Lineage was here today, one feared that he would also be stunned on the spot. Xie Jingxing did not participate in the academy examinations every year, but even so, everyone knew that he was good in both civil and martial arts, especially in martial arts. Even though he did not compete, he had followed the army a few times, and his performance made others look at him in a new light. If he was not in the limelight, it would be hard to avoid attracting the imperial family's fear. Xie Jingxing's reputation on the battlefield was no less than that of a veteran general. However, the reason why he did not participate in the annual academy examinations was not to dispel the royal family's fear. It was purely because he did not care about trifles, as if he had a few rebellious bones, or because he was deliberately against his father. In short, he looked down upon the performance of the academy examination. It was because he did not participate that everyone could only look at the two Shu sons of the residents of the Marquis of Lineage. Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao also put in hard work and were able to get a few first grades in the academy examinations. But this year, the most cynical little Marquis of the Xie family and the two outstanding concubine brothers were competing. Who would win? Although Xie Jingxing's reputation was out there, people were more used to accepting things in front of them. Xie Jingxing had never displayed his talent in the Ding capital. The women only knew of this youth's brilliance from their master's words, but what they heard was false, so they still had some doubts. Although those youths envied Xie Jingxing for being able to be so free and unrestrained, they were also jealous. Now that they saw that they might be able to dampen Xie Jingxing's spirit, they were somewhat happy. In addition, the two Xie brothers knew how to conduct themselves, and there were many people who were on good terms with them. Thus, the youths would side with Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao. It was the young females who had long blushed in front of Xie Jingxing's handsome looks. Looking at his extraordinary bearing, there was a kind of valiance that was completely different from the soft temperament of the Ding capital's hedonistic young masters. It was as if he had a blood-cold aura, but he always smiled evilly, which made him extraordinarily charming. Therefore, the girls were all optimistic about Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao took a panoramic view of everyone's expression. Most likely, these people felt that Xie Jingxing came up to challenge his two younger brothers on a whim, and his noble son's temper flared up. But Shen Miao gently smiled. Xie Jingxing was not an easy person to deal with. Since he was already on the stage of the academy examinations, there was no possibility for his two Shu brothers to retreat unscathed. The difference between Xie Jingxing and her was that even though she acted arrogantly on the surface, she still had a plan and knew that she had to plan slowly in order to achieve her goal. But Xie Jingxing, most likely because he had the residence of the Marquis of Lin and behind him, he was fearless. But behind him, was there only the residence of the Marquis of Lineage? Chapter 65. Just as she was thinking, Xie Chongwu below the stage spoke out, "Eldest brother, this one fear is not good." "What is not good?" Xie Jingxing glanced at Shen Miao and then looked at Xie Chongwu before suddenly smiling. "Or do you think that Shen Miao is more challenging than this marquis?" With a huff sound, everyone below the stage laughed. Xie Jingxing continued to size up Shen Miao. "No internal energy and no martial arts, but you challenged her to archery. You are also a martial arts practitioner and challenging a female who does not even have the strength to truss a chicken. This older brother is unable to understand." His lips suddenly hooked up into a smile, and his voice was low and magnetic. "But this little girl's looks are not bad. If you were to pick based on looks, it is worthy of the name." This time, those youths who were pulling their lips started to laugh, and some of them even looked at Shen Miao ambiguously. Indeed, now that Shen Miao had shed that layer of stupid image, her entire facial features seemed to be glowing. She was born to be not bad and had a lovable and adorable appearance, but was extremely quiet. This kind of contrast made one unable to move their eyes away. It was just that her previous image was too stubborn, and one could not change it in a short period of time. But Xie Jingxing's words seemed to have lifted that layer of paper, and the youths did not hesitate to agree that Shen Miao was a very special little beauty. The females, however, were not happy. Xie Jingxing's words were clearly praising Shen Miao's looks. Xin Yu's and Xin Qing's expressions changed. Even though they admired Fu Xiuyi, there were so many handsome males in the world, and there was not only one Fu Xiuyi. A youth like Xie Jingxing was unique in the Ding capital and even in the entire Ming Qi. This kind of youth actually praised that idiot, which made Xin Yu and Xin Qing, who had high self-esteem, extremely jealous. Yi Pei Lan frowned and muttered, "Is little Xie Marquis blind? How could he think that Shen Miao is good-looking? It must be that Shen Miao used some method to confuse him." Bai Wei bit her lips and stared at the youth on the stage. Shen Miao is really shameless. Previously, she kept pestering Prince Ding, and now she came to pester little Xie Marquis. Shen Miao did not know of their discussions, but even if she knew, she would just laugh it off. Because she knew that Xie Jingxing's motive for saying these words was not to tease her, nor was it to help her out, but to use a method that the two Xie brothers could not refuse, to force them to go on stage. In all fairness, the two Xie brothers were naturally not willing to go against Xie Jingxing. Not mentioning the outcome, Xie Ding had always doted on the D sons, and if a Shu son and a D son were to challenge each other on the academy examination stage, what would Xie Ding think? He would only think that the brothers were not on good terms. The biased Xie Ding would definitely be unhappy with the two brothers. Therefore, Xie Changwu and Xie Changchao would definitely think of ways to decline, but Xie Jingxing was a clever person and did not force them and directly goaded them. Yes, it was too strange that Xie Changwu was unwilling to challenge Xie Jingxing but wanted to challenge Shen Miao, who did not have the strength to fend off a chicken. His selfishness was clearly displayed in front of everyone. In order to dispel everyone's thoughts and to prove that he was not trying to climb up the Kai family, Xie Changwu could only go on stage himself and compete with Xie Jingxing. This was a helpless move, but after he agreed, his plan to use Shen Miao to climb up the Kai family would fall through and he would lose. He braced himself to get up. Since older brother has spoken, how can this younger brother not follow? How would Xie Jingxing give him a chance to complain? On the battlefield, whoever he wanted to lose, he would lose without mercy. One person is not enough. He raised his eyebrows. Third younger brother, come up together. Chapter 66. Third brother, let's go together. With Xie Jingxing's words, Xie Changchao below the stage was also stunned. Previously, when he saw Xie Jingxing's sudden appearance, he thought that Xie Jingxing was specially helping Shen Miao out of the predicament. Anyway, this older brother's actions could not be inferred from the perspective of an ordinary person. But Xie Jingxing's words stunned him. The person who went up to challenge was only Xie Changwu, so what did it have to do with him? But now that Xie Ding was not present, Xie Changchao could only look towards Xie Changwu and whispered, "Second older brother, what is going on?" Xie Changwu was usually more astute than Xie Changchao, and when he heard Xie Jingxing's words, he was instantly angered. Xie Jingxing wanted to challenge, but said that he alone was not enough and had to add Xie Changchao. What was the meaning of this? This was nothing more than humiliating the two brothers. Xie Jingxing naturally thought that the two brothers were not his opponent even if they joined hands. This was just too arrogant. Xie Changwu, who was angered by Xie Jingxing's words, had long lost his usual calmness. His expression became unfriendly, and his tone seemed to contain some anger. "Big brother, you're full of confidence. You don't even put us in your eyes at all." On the stage, Xie Jingxing was playing with the fruit that he had taken from the examiner's hand. His beautiful eyes narrowed as he lazily said, "Not bad. I indeed did not put you all in my eyes. The two of you have been practicing martial arts since you were young and have never sparred with me. I heard that you were outstanding. How about you let me broaden my horizons today?" He continued. Everyone present seemed to have heard the discord between the Xie brothers. One had to know that the matter of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and had spread throughout the entire Ming Qi. All along, everyone had different guesses about the relationship between these few brothers, and Xie Jingxing had always maintained an indifferent attitude towards the residence of the Marquis of Lin An, to the extent that he disdained to talk to the two Shu younger brothers. Thus there did not seem to be any waves in this coldness. Today was the first time that Xie Jingxing made his two Shu brothers lose face in front of everyone. The audience started to discuss among themselves. Some of them wanted to watch the show, while others were curious about the result. Xin Miao looked at that casual and handsome youth. This person, Xie Jingxing, was indeed somewhat strange. He seemed willful and indulgent, but there seemed to be a clear line guiding him. Now, the two Xie brothers were being led by the nose by him, and he didn't even realize it. He was afraid that after today's written examination, the two Xie brothers would not be left with a trace of their reputation. When Xie Changwu heard it, he suddenly sneered and said word by word, "Only exchanging pointers, why not?" He looked at Xie Jingxing, and there were all kinds of strange emotions in his shrewd eyes. He said, "Since older brother wants to do so, then third younger brother will attack together. I'm afraid that when the time comes, big brother must not say that you're bullying me." He said it so confidently. In other words, if Xie Jingxing lost to them, it was Xie Jingxing who started it first. It had nothing to do with the two of them. Xie Jingxing might even make a fool out of himself. Xie Changqiao was still somewhat hesitant, but when he saw Xie Changwu giving him a look, he immediately recovered and said, "Younger brothers will definitely accompany." The most interesting thing about the selection round of the academy examinations was that no matter what kind of people there were, no matter how many people there were, and no matter whether they were male or female, they were all free to choose. Thus Xie Jingxing's request was not in violation of anything. Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up into a smile, and that evil smile attracted a number of young females' gazes. He jokingly said, "Wanna also set up a life and death agreement?" Xie Changqiao's and Xie Changwu's bodies stiffened and their faces became somewhat ugly. Xie Jingxing, however, lazily said, "Just joking. Between brothers, there is no need to fight to the death." Xin Miao's lips also gently hooked up. Xie Jingxing's words were really vicious. Since the two Xie brothers had already gone up the stage, there was nothing for her to do here. She tidied up her dress and went down the stage. At the female side of the banquet, Shen Yu and Shen Qing did not go up to talk, but it was Feng and Ning who quickly ran over. She said, "Your archery skills are actually this good. Could it be that you want a daughter to inherit your father's career?" Xin Miao's heart slightly wavered. Now that the imperial family was eyeing the Shen family covetously, not to mention her, even her eldest brother's situation was extremely dangerous. In the beginning, eldest brother's life was ruined by a female, and now that the Shen family had not fallen apart, she would use her own methods to protect the Shen family. Just like on the stage just now, whoever dared not give the Shen family face, she would not hesitate to return it 100-fold. But among the three people on the stage, who do you think will win? Feng and Ning suddenly changed the topic and rambled on. "Even though the little marquis of the Xie family is famous, but we have not seen it with our own eyes. Perhaps the rumors are not credible. That Xie Changwu and Xie Changqiao had obtained first rank last year. 2 against 1. No matter what it would be the little marquis who would suffer a loss." Xie Jingxing would suffer a loss? Xin Miao laughed in her heart and gently shook her head. Xie Changwu, who was on the stage, also said, "It is not easy for the two of us to judge against you alone, so we will pick a spear." This time, Xin Miao really laughed out loud. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "Spear? Can?" The examiner quickly found 3 fine horses. The high platform was extremely wide, and if it was controlled well, it could almost accommodate the horses galloping freely on it. 3 spears were also thrown into the hands of the 3 people. That Xie Changwu and Xie Changqiao know how to use 2 spears. Feng and Ning exclaimed. Xie Chaosun and Xie Changwu had a tacit understanding and were able to combine 2 spears into one and then combine them into one. Using this method, every year they would obtain first rank in the spear examinations. Because of this, Xie Changwu picked this, most likely hoping to crush Xie Jingxing. But in fact, Xin Miao's eyes drooped. Others did not know, but she knew. In the memorials of the Ming Qi's imperial family, there was a memorial that recorded the Xie family's formation on the battlefield. Xie Jingxing was not simple because he could form a formation by himself. One-line spirit snake formation, one spear, one horse, and one person. There were only 3, but they were able to defeat the enemy. This kind of formation was only suitable for the opponent's high-ranking military officers, and Xie Jingxing had never lost before. How could the 2 Xie brothers contend against a country's high-ranking military officer? One feared that they would become a laughingstock today. The drummer hammered the drum heavily, and when the drum sounded, the written examination would begin. Xie Changwu and Xie Changchao looked at each other as the 2 horses galloped side by side. They had gone through rigorous training, and the steps of the horses were almost exactly the same. Drunken Spear's spear moves were also exactly the same. Looking from afar, it was as if one person had split into 2, which was somewhat scary. That purple-clad youth lazily raised his hand, and the black horse under him suddenly raised its hooves and galloped in the opposite direction. Everyone was in an uproar as they saw him holding the spear horizontally in front of him, and his clothes were like purple clouds and lightning. Like a storm, murderous aura instantly overflowed, and that handsome facial features made him look like a jade-faced Azura. Chapter 67. Normally, good-looking and fierce could not be mentioned in the same breath. Just like what those old people said, flowery but impractical moves, good-looking moves would definitely not be powerful, and the truly powerful moves would definitely be very fierce. However, Xie Jingxing was different. He was born handsome and romantic, but when he was crawling on the horse's back with the long spear in front of him, he was like a valiant god of war. That kind of iron blood temperament that was trained in the battlefield made one unable to move their eyes away from him. Strength and beauty, charm and ruthlessness. He was like a beautiful wolf that had a kind of noble and fierce aura that made one's heart palpitate. His purple robes were like flowing clouds and lightning as the horse beneath him galloped. Below him, everyone's blood seemed to be boiling with the sound of the horse's hooves. He had a strange temperament that could cause people to soar. Xie Changchao's and Xie Changwu's eyes followed the purple-clad youth closely, and they also separated. They actually wanted to outflank Xie Jingxing from the left and right, wanting to encircle and annihilate Xie Jingxing. This was really a shameless way of doing things. It was clearly 2 against 1. Everyone at the scene exclaimed one after another. Fu Xiaoyi said, "Xie Jingxing is indeed a good seedling of the Xie family. How is it as mysterious as what you said?" Prince Zhou smiled, so stubborn that even Xie Ding could not deal with him. One fear that he is also a devil incarnate. Fu Xiaoyi smiled but did not speak. Even though this Xie Jingxing looked stubborn, he was definitely not an easy person to deal with. In the face of absolute strength, schemes and plots were also helpless. The reason why Xie Jingxing put this kind of cynical attitude on the surface was because he had nothing to fear. And what made him fearless? Most likely it was self-confidence. It was different from Prince Zhou's arrogance, and was also different from Prince Jing's cautiousness. Fu Xiaoyi's evaluation of a person had always been very comprehensive. Thus there were all kinds of people in his advisors. There were those who were talented and learned in broadcasting, and there were also those who looked very unremarkable, high-ranking officials whose families had fallen, and there were also those who were heinous criminals. Only using talent, character, bearing, or the attitude of handling matters were not important to him. Xie Jingxing was such a dazzling person, and one really wanted to keep him for one's own use. Unfortunately, he came from the residence of the Marquis of Lineage, and the residence of the Marquis of Lineage, after all, could not exist in the Ming-Chi's rivers and mountains for too long. Putting down the regret in his heart, Fu Xiaoyi continued to look up at the youth on the field. Xie Jingxing was being surrounded by the 2 Xie brothers, but agilely dodged left and right. It was like a snake. No matter how airtight Xie Changwu and Xie Changchao's encirclement was, he would always be able to easily pass through. The 2 brothers originally cooperated perfectly with each other with their spears, but under Xie Jingxing's movements, it looked like it was riddled with holes. It was really very comical. Only when there was a contest would one be able to determine who was superior and who was inferior. In the process of fighting, who was superior and who was inferior was a fact that could be seen with a single glance. In front of Xie Jingxing, The two Xie brothers were unable to withstand a single blow. Heavens! Bai Wei covered her mouth and exclaimed, "Little Marquis Xie seems to be playing with the Xie brothers." "That's right. In comparison," Yi Pei Lan also exclaimed, "the Xie brothers' rifles look like they are just for show." If the womenfolk could see the facts, how could the male side of the banquet not see it? Xie Jingxing was able to kill in one blow, but was deliberately grinding Xie Changwu and Xie Changchao bit by bit. It was as if a lion had caught a rabbit, but was not in a hurry to swallow it, but was playing with and torturing it. Little Marquis Xie is really an amazing person. Feng and Ning said, the Xie brothers' rifles are the thing that they are most proud of, but in comparison, it is like the difference between clouds and mud. One fear that today they will be defeated miserably. Xin Miao looked down at the chess game in front of her. Chapter 68. Not at all. How could this be considered as a miserable defeat? This was just the beginning. She slowly placed the white pieces down, and the two black pieces were swallowed in an instant. A small blank space appeared on the chessboard. On the stage, Xie Changwu and Xie Changchao were finally angered. They were like monkeys being played by Xie Jingxing for a long time, and their hearts were angry and humiliated. Xie Jingxing was clearly deliberately making it difficult for the two brothers to get off the stage and knew how bad their performance was. Xie Changwu's heart suddenly gave birth to a murderous intent. He stared fiercely at the purple-clad youth in front of him. The youth on the horse was extraordinarily handsome, and his smile was very eye-catching. From birth, he was the proud son of heaven of the residence of the Marquis of Lineage. But even so, he was still dismissive of the residence of the Marquis of Lineage. No matter if it was the status of the heir or the favoritism towards Xie Ding. He was like the king of the jungle, a tiger that overbearingly blocked everyone's way of survival. How could one not hate him? In this extremely embarrassing situation, Xie Changwu's perfect mask that he had always maintained was finally on the verge of breaking. He roared loudly and grabbed the long spear as he charged towards Xie Jingxing. At the moment when they passed each other, he viciously stabbed the long spear into the buttocks of Xie Jingxing's horse. Everyone was shocked. In the spear competition, there had never been anyone who attacked the other party's horse. Because the horse was a mount, it was highly possible to injure the other party. Falling from the back of a horse, it was common for one to rest for a month if it was light, while it would be heavy if one's arm or leg was broken, or even one's neck was broken. After all, the academy examinations was just a means to evaluate the students, and there was no need to be so bloody. So such a situation had never happened before. Xie Changwu's method was really a despicable act. Xie Changchao was also shocked by Xie Changwu's actions, but very quickly he understood. Almost without any hesitation, he rode the horse below him and charged towards Xie Jingxing's direction. He actually wanted to trample on Xie Jingxing, who had fallen to death. Could it be that these two brothers were crazy? There was only one thought in everyone's mind. Not to mention if this matter would violate the law in Mingqi, but in the residence of the Marquis of Lineage. If the Marquis of Lineage knew of this matter and something happened to Xie Jingxing, would the two Xie brothers be able to escape? The womenfolk cried out in alarm, and the men also sucked in a breath of cold air. The more timid ones had already covered their eyes. Feng and Ning, this pampered female, was so scared that she screamed. Xin Miao's wrist stopped as she looked up at the youth on the stage. The two brothers of the Xie family were indeed not a brilliant opponent. This chess move was too bad in Xie Jingxing. He was destined to not let go of this opportunity. The black horse let out a long neigh and raised its two front hooves high, almost standing upright. Then, it struggled frantically. The purple-clothed youth twirled the long spear in his hand in a beautiful flower, but he kicked the horse's hooves. The long spear was bent horizontally, and the horse's two hooves were fiercely tripped. The handsome horse fell to the ground, but it did not stand up again. Before everyone could react, Xie Jingxing's toes tapped lightly, and without saying a word, he leaped up. His figure was out of this world, and he was as suave as a flying immortal. With a flick of the long spear, Xie Changwu was flipped onto the ground. His other hand casually picked up a stone and flicked it, and it all hit the knee of Xie Changchao's horse. Xie Changchao could not dodge in time and fell down. The two brothers were flipped off their horses in a short moment. Xie Jingxing's foot lazily stepped on Xie Changchao's shoulder, and the other hand pointed the long spear at Xie Changwu's head as he said with a smile that was not a smile, "Even dare to sneak an attack on older brother. Really? Overestimating one's capabilities." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.